But we begin this hour with Uvalde, with NBC's Shaq Brewster and NBC Justice correspondent Pete Williams. Shaq, today the focus is on the victims. And also, there continues to be scrutiny of the Uvalde police chief. Tell us where that stands.
Yeah, another visitation starts just this hour, Andrea, and over the course of the weekend, we've just seen so much grief, so much pain, and so much sadness. This is one of the memorials in Uvalde where you have people coming from all over to pay their respects. I'll let you kind of take a look of the constant flow of people that we have here. There's so many flowers, so many candles, teddy bears, flags, people coming around to just write a note. So much grief in this town, and you have a feeling that so many people are coming out to do whatever they can to honor the victims of this shooting. You mentioned the first visitation that we saw started yesterday. It was a visitation for Amarillo Garza. Her grandmother says she was shot while making a phone call in the room. She's described by her family as a beautiful and loving girl. There's also Maite Rodriguez, a marine biologist she wanted to be. She wanted to study at Texas A&M University. Her obituary read, "Those who know and loved her were blessed with her kind, ambitious, friendly, and sweet soul." And you know, Andrea, one thing that we see is the grief that is here, that sense of sadness, but there's also a building sense of frustration that's mounting, and that's combined with that sadness. The last update that we got from state officials who are investigating this shooting was on Friday, and that's when we learned what they call the string of errors that took place, including the decision not to engage the shooter, but instead hold officers outside of the classroom. And much of the attention and much of the focus has been directed at the police chief of the Uvalde School District Police Department, a small department, but that chief, Pete Arredondo, was the incident commander at the site, and state officials are pointing the finger at him for making that decision of not engaging the shooter. We learned from the mayor yesterday. I want you to we got a statement. I want to put that statement up on screen, but the mayor saying Pete Arredondo was duly elected to the city council. There's nothing in the city charter, election code, or Texas Constitution that prohibits him from taking the oath of office. To our knowledge, we're currently not aware of any investigation of Mr. Arredondo. Despite the lack of investigation, there's a lot of questions that are there. We expected to see him sworn in to City Council today. That swearing in has been canceled. We have reached out to Mr. Arredondo directly as a network. We have not heard anything back, but that is where a lot of the attention and frustration is being directed at right now, as there's still so much pain and so much grief in this community, Andrea.
Thanks to Shaq and Pete. We're waiting to hear just who's going to lead the Justice Department's critical incident report into the police response in the shooting and how that investigation will proceed. This is part of the Justice Department that was really dismantled partly under Donald Trump, so they are rebuilding.
Well, this is what's known as the COPS Office, Community-Oriented Policing Services, and they've done these critical incident reviews in the past. They did one after the Pulse nightclub shooting in 2016. You may remember that one in Orlando. That took 18 months to complete that report because of the complexity of the shooting scene and the number of victims. The service also did a similar after-action review on the terrorist shooting in San Bernardino at the government office. That one took 10 months to review. So we don't know yet who's going to lead it, but it'll be somebody from the COPS office. And you can expect, Andrea, that it will take months to complete this. It will look at what happened. It will also make recommendations based on what they've done in the past. But it won't include, for example, as we understand it, it won't include people from the FBI doing this investigation. It's not a criminal investigation. It's a look at the policies, the decision, the wisdom, if you will. And it also is not just to sort of find fault. It's also to look at what happened here and see what lessons can be learned so that other police departments can benefit from whatever recommendations the report makes. But it's going to be, possibly up to a year if these other ones are like it. I would assume they'll take a similar amount of time.
Pete Williams, thanks to you and, of course, to Shaq. Matt Miller is joining us. He served at the Justice Department as the spokesperson for Attorney General Eric Holder and joins me now and afterwards with the Biden White House for a while with the National Security Council team as well. So, drawing on your experience, Matt, another tragedy, another another series of questions, serious questions about the local response, a grieving community, but these questions need to be asked, as difficult as they are, on why that gap, an hour and 17 minutes, with people not going in, when all the playbooks that we've read, even by those who've designed the FBI routines, are to go in right away when you have an active shooter.
That's right, Andrea. It's clear that the best practices that have been sadly developed over the years since Columbine were not followed in this incident. I think one of the things that's important to note about this review that the department's going to conduct is something that Pete noted. This is not a criminal investigation. So I think we're all familiar with the types of investigations DOJ can conduct into police departments when there are allegations of criminal wrongdoing, excessive force. For example, the investigation that the department announced last year into the Minneapolis Police Department after the killing of George Floyd. This isn't that. There's no allegation of criminal wrongdoing in this case. Gross incompetence, maybe, failure to follow training, maybe, but not a criminal investigation. So this is one in which the department relies on the cooperation of the local police department, and in which they can only investigate when they've been invited to do so, as they have been here by the city of Uvalde. So I think they will be looking at what actually happened on the scene, and we continue to hear reports from the Texas Department of Public Safety. But I don't think at this point we should take anything that we hear out of local law enforcement with 100% veracity, given the shifting statements that we've heard over the past few days. So DOJ will want to look at what happened, what mistakes were made, what best practices could be instituted for other police departments, and what reforms, if any, ought to be instituted in Uvalde.
How important, though, is local leadership? Because whatever they decide, it has to be implemented by someone at the local level. This is a small community, 15,000 people.
Yeah, local leadership is critically important, not just for implementing any reforms that come out of this report, but also for ensuring that the department can actually get access to the people and the information that it needs. Because this isn't a criminal investigation, DOJ can't subpoena any one of the local law enforcement officials and make them come to a grand jury and testify. They will rely on the chief of police or the mayor ordering people to cooperate and ordering people to tell what they know happened for DOJ to be able to assemble all of the answers and develop a complete report of what happened on that day. So it is crucial that they get a direction from the top in the city, and I would say as well as the state, because the Uvalde Police Department was not the only law enforcement agency on the scene. It's going to be important that DOJ talk to every law enforcement, local, state, and federal that responded.
And as we know, there's a lot of tension between state and this locality in terms of the local state rep and what you're hearing from, the governor, certainly, and the other top state officials.
Yeah, that's absolutely right. And I think what you've seen over the past few days is a lot of finger pointing among them. One thing I want to add, though, Andrea, is I do think it's important as we look at this review, as it launches, as it gets underway, and then ultimately as we review the report when it's finalized, is if we continue to expect police to solve all these situations, we will continue to find ourselves asking these questions in the wake of shootings. It's important that we get to the bottom of the mistakes that the police department seems to have made, but we will not police our way out of this situation.
That's a very fair point. I might also add we cannot expect teachers to resolve this either in terms of becoming an adjunct to the police force. Matt Miller, thank you.